President Bola Tinubu launches industrial policy to boost production and jobs. Nigeria opens data privacy probe into Temu. Nigeria's oil producers struggle on $5 to $7 per barrel margin. South Africa considers scrapping prime lending rates by 2027. These are the talking points on Business Edge today. Thank you for joining us. I am Perpetua Fasumi Peter. Let's begin with our top stories for today. President Bola Tinubu has signed an executive order aimed at boosting oil and gas revenues, reducing leakages, and restructuring fiscal provisions under Nigeria's petroleum framework. The directive targets revenue deductions created by the Petroleum Industry Act and mandates that key proceeds from production sharing contracts be paid directly into the Federation account. Under the new measures, NNPC Limited will no longer retain the 30% Frontier Exploration Fund or the 30% management fee on profit, oil and gas. Gas flare penalties will also be redirected to the Federation account. The government says the reforms will enhance transparency, strengthen public finances, and support national economic priorities. Nigeria's Association of Power Generation Companies says unpaid invoices for electricity supplies to the national grid have risen to about 6 trillion naira, heightening concerns over the sustainability of power generation. The group attributed the surge to liquidity constraints and weak remittances across the value chain, limiting investments in fuel, maintenance, and expansion. Chief Executive Officer Joy Ogaji rejected allegations by the Nigeria Labour Congress of institutionalized extortion, describing them as misleading. The dispute follows remarks by Labour President Joe Ajaero. GENCOs warned that persistent revenue shortfalls and policy uncertainties could deter investment and worsen electricity supply challenges. And finally, in Southern Africa, South Africa's gold fields reported that full-year profit more than doubled for the year ended December 2025, supported by record-high gold prices and stronger production. Headline earnings rose to $2.88 per share from $1.33 a year earlier. The company declared a final dividend of 18.50 rand per share, up from 7 rand, bringing total dividends for 2025 to 25.50 rand, compared with 10 rand in 2024. Goldfields also announced an additional $353 million in shareholder returns, including $253 million in special dividends and $100 million in share buybacks. The miner said strong market conditions and operational performance boosted cash generation. Up next is Market Watch. Stay with us. Fresh upward momentum returned to the local bourse, led by renewed buying in large cap names. And apart from that, Seplat jumped 8.33% to an all-time high of 9,099 naira 90 kobo, while bargain hunting in banking stocks, especially following the sector's sharp pullback in the prior session, lifted ETI, Zenith Bank, and UBA. And now, beginning with the oil share index, let's take a look at the numbers. You can see that it went up 56 basis points, closing 190,427.96. That's for the oil share index, bringing it to a year-to-date return of 22.37%. And now to market capitalization. For market capitalization, it also grew 56 basis points to 122.2 trillion naira. Let's take a look at the top movers. For top movers, we have FCMB, Charms, NSL Tech, Mutual Benefits, and Access Corporation right there. You can see FCMB with 35.9 billion naira. That's huge in terms of value. And of course, in terms of volume, you also see 2.9 billion shares being traded right there. For Charms, 59.3 million. At SL Tech, you have the numbers. The Access Corporation, 876.8 million naira in terms of value. Away from that, let's take a look at the top gainers from yesterday's trading activities. We see Better Glass right there, Skyway Aviation, you have Mansard, you have Zichis, and you also have Japan Gold. Now, talking about Zichis, which closed its IPO on January 20 at 1 naira 99 kobo, has since gained 622% on that price valuation, and now it is the first on the NGX in terms of year-to-date performance with that particular percentage increase. Now, away from that, let's take a look at the top losers from yesterday's market activities. You have Deep Cap right there, down 10%, Mikio down 9.99%, Vitafoam down 9.98%. You know, Diconsult down 9.80%. And you have Abe Mortgage Bank also down 9.62%. Sector performance now. For sector performance, activity was largely positive. Oil and gas led gains with a 3.87% rally, and that was propelled by Seplat's rally, and that brought the sector's year-to-date gain to 52.82%. That's as of yesterday's trading activities, actually, and of course it maintains its position as the best performing index this year so far. This was followed by banking advancing 67 basis points, and after that you've got consumer goods increasing 22 basis points and industrial edging up 9 basis points. But conversely, the insurance sector fell 20 basis points, and of course, it remained subdued, pressured by Lasaco and NEM. Lasaco was down 5.65%, and NEM was also down 4.04%. Now, that gives us a picture of what transpired yesterday at the local bourse. Today is another trading day, and we hope to bring you the details about it tomorrow. We'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll have our first conversation. We're looking at Nigeria's Industrial Policy 2025. Stay with us. President Bola Tinubu has unveiled Nigeria's Industrial Policy 2025, calling on ministries, departments and agencies to ensure rapid and coordinated implementation. The policy is designed as a roadmap to re-engineer the country's industrial base, unlock value across key sectors, and place production, competitiveness and job creation at the center of economic strategy. Represented by Vice President Kashim Shettima, Tinubu said the framework already includes a clear implementation architecture, arguing that policy failure often stems from weak execution rather than flawed design. Authorities said the policy also aims to improve coordination between government and industry to drive sustainable industrial growth in Nigeria. To unpack this, I'm joined by Dr. Femi Egbesola, Co-facilitator, MSME Community of Practice, NESG, and also the President of Association of Small Business Owners of Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining me today, Doctor.
Thank you for having me.
All right. I mean, just like I said earlier, the government has unveiled a new industrial policy. What is your initial assessment of its potential impact?
I think this is going to be very different from what we have had in the past. And it is because it is coming from the side of implementation. I think there's more emphasis now for the interest of government to ensure that this is being implemented. And again, there are so many key issues that came up that are very strategic to business growth that is absent in the other bills and the national development plans we have had in the past. For example, this particular new policy wants to drive us from exporting raw materials to adding value to it, to ensure that we had value to make it finished products like cocoa, like rubber, and other minerals. You also see that it is very intentional about boosting the contribution of the manufacturing sector to the GDP, meaning that they want to actually grow that sector. What interests me most, again, is that the policy directs steps to now recapitalize the Bank of Industry to 3 trillion naira. That's a lot of money. And I think that will go a long way to finance MSMEs and manufacturers. It also decides to provide intervention fund for certain sectors up to 3 trillion again. That's another big fund. And it is now preparing the industrial sector to be able to have much contribution to the GDP. And at the same time, the budget now will have 3 to 5% of its earnings going to structural investment. I think that's also very key and very good. The policy is also looking at how to migrate minimum of 1,000 new exporters into the aftermarket market, and that will also open us to more regional and global markets. I'm also very interested in the Nigerian First policy that this new the industrial policy also wants to push. Push in the sense that government want to pay more attention now to ensure that locally made goods and services are being patronized by government and also by Nigerians through the Nigerian First policy. So it means that for government procurement, for infrastructure projects and all of that, even for incentives, it will go to the locals now. And then one way that I feel that this will work, which has also been mentioned by the Vice President during his speech yesterday, is the fact that this is going to be measured not by documents, but by the performance of the factories opened, the more jobs that are created, and the number of exports that we're able to achieve during the lifespan of this new policy. That's a clear implementation architecture, and they're now trying to synergize and synchronize all the ministries, agencies, and stakeholders to be part of this. And they're also now talking about bringing in the public and the private sector to begin to dialogue to see how this can work. I think that's a very, very good way to start. I hope it has achieved its set goals and targets at the end of the exercise.
Right. You mentioned something very critical, and that's the fact that the policy includes a clear implementation architecture. Does this increase your confidence in its potential impact, and how significant do you think this is for ensuring it achieves its objectives? I recall you tried to say something in that light earlier, but I mean, let's take it as a whole now.
Yes, I have confidence in it. One of the reasons why I have confidence in it is that it is coming from the ministry that is now headed by someone that has been around the corridor of industry, of MSMEs and industrialization of Nigeria over the years. So it's a round peg in the round hole. The second reason why I have certain confidence in it is the nationwide engagement with key stakeholders. Many of us were brought in to submit our recommendations, to submit our suggestions to make this work. And I think this is also trying to now reposition Nigeria from consumption to a production country, to a competitive country, to an export country, to a job creation country. And these are the key thematic pillars that we need to grow our economy. This is the focus of this new policy. And now that we are also looking at even bringing in investors to support the local manufacturers and the local economy, I think that's also good. You also look at it that one of the major challenges that MSMEs have is electricity. This particular policy is targeting channeling billions of naira into renewable energy to provide alternative energies for manufacturers and SMEs, and also creating industrial centers here and there to be able to house various SMEs in one area, in one location where they can have shared facilities, enjoy more access to funding, and become more globally competitive. I think if this works, it will really push Nigeria up in the global scene. It will actually help to grow more businesses in Nigeria. We are going to be able to now see more MSMEs coming up, growing and scaling, unlike the stunted growth that we have at the moment. And more manufacturers will now come to the table because there are so many ways we can now make good business with this policy.
Right. Now, this particular policy aims to improve coordination between government and industry. Talk to us about how significant this will be in ensuring that the goals or the set objectives are achieved.
Yes, for coordination, I'm happy that before this policy launch, there have been pockets of initiatives from government to ensure that it come up as baby steps before we have this policy. One of which is the national single window, whereby all agencies of government are now brought together under one window, where you can now pay to virtually every agencies of government or ministries of government that has to do with businesses or SME through one portal, through digital platform, on your table, in the comfort of your house or office, seamlessly removing human interface. That helps to synergize and bring about all ministries. And now that the president himself has also lent his voice to say that MDAs must work together to ensure this works, I think that's a very, very strategic statement, and I feel it is going to drive this. From our part as business membership organization and stakeholders in the MSME ecosystem, we also continue to follow the path to see that this policy is in tandem with the set roads and the set targets, and at the same time, when there are gaps and when there are lapses, we will not keep quiet. We will not be silent. We'll keep talking about it. We'll keep pushing it to government to say, okay, there's already an alignment or a misalignment, and this is what we need to do, either for better or the otherwise. Right,
let's close with this. I mean, looking at the policy's focus areas, would you say, the policy's focus areas adequately address long-standing problems such as high production costs, infrastructure gaps, fragmented value chains, and also weak government-industry coordination? To some extent, you've talked about the weak government-industry coordination. I mean, but looking at the other issues, what do you think?
Right. For me, I think the major beneficiary of this new industrial policy are manufacturers, those in agriculture and its value chain, those that are artisans and skilled workers, micro, small, and medium scale enterprises, those in renewable energy, and of course, those who are into export. These are the major beneficiaries of this new policy. And for coordination, again, I'm happy that the policy is bringing in everybody, like I mentioned the other time, and it is going to now be able to improve access to funding for us, supporting technology, skill upgrading, and cluster development, and of course, provide incentives for entering value chains, raw material processing, and export markets. These are critical goals that is needed for MSMEs. Let's begin to now look at how really we are going to translate this from policy paper to actualization, to reality, by actually seeing all the MDAs cooperating, synchronizing among themselves to work together for this particular common goal.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Femi Egbesola, Co-facilitator, MSME Community of Practice, NESG, and President, Association of Small Business Owners of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.